It was not a regular earthquake. Seismologists have a name for the specific signal that appeared on the monitoring screens in Goma this week. They call it a long period event, a magma earthquake. It means one thing: fluid moving through rock, magma, underground, moving. And the volcano it came from has not had a major eruption in 3 years. 3 years of pressure, 3 years of silence. And underneath one of Africa's most crowded cities, it just ended. Here is what this video is going to show you. There's a volcano in Central Africa that sits directly above a city of 1 million people. Its lava does not flow like normal lava. It runs 60 miles per hour. And directly beneath that city sits a lake holding enough dissolved gas to suffocate every living thing within a 100-kilometer radius. In minutes, no warning, no eruption required. The scientists watching this system work in a building with intermittent power. Sometimes armed rebel groups control the road between them and the volcano they are supposed to monitor. The Observatoire Volcanologique de Goma logged a magma earthquake this week. It is the clearest signal they have recorded since the system began escalating in 2024. Stay with me, because what is happening under this city is not a regional story. It is not even a continental story. It is the story of what happens when the most dangerous volcano in Africa wakes up and the world is looking somewhere else. Most people have never heard of Nyiragongo. That is the first problem. Nyiragongo sits in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Eastern DRC, a place that does not make news unless the news is about war. And there has been a lot of war. Armed groups, the M23 rebel movement, the FDLR, and dozens of smaller factions have controlled territory between Goma and the volcano for years. That matters. Because when you cannot reliably reach the monitoring station, you cannot reliably know what the volcano is doing. And what Nyiragongo has been doing since 2024 is not nothing. The OVG, Observatoire Volcanologique de Goma, is the agency responsible for watching this system. They are staffed by Congolese scientists doing extraordinary work under conditions that most Western monitoring agencies would consider impossible. Intermittent electricity, limited equipment, a security situation that has, on multiple occasions, physically prevented field teams from accessing the summit. When the magma earthquake signal appeared on their seismographs this week, a long-period tremor, the seismic fingerprint of moving magma, they logged it, they documented it, and then they looked at the trend line running back through 2024 and 2025. And the trend line does not look like a system at rest. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what kind of volcano Nyiragongo is, because it is not like other volcanoes. Most lava flows move at walking pace, 1 mile per hour, maybe 2. You can outrun them, you can watch them coming. Nyiragongo's lava is different. It is an alkali-rich, ultra-low silica magma called nephelinite. The chemistry matters. Low silica means low viscosity. Low viscosity means the lava is thin, almost watery. When Nyiragongo erupts and the flank opens, the lava does not creep. It flows at 60 miles per hour. 60. In 1977, Nyiragongo's crater walls fractured in 4 minutes. The lava lake drained completely in under an hour. 70 people died. Most of them never saw it coming. In 2002, Nyiragongo erupted again. A lava flow reached the Goma runway and divided the city. 245 people killed. 400,000 displaced. In May 2021, just 3 years ago, it erupted again. Without warning, without the seismic escalation that scientists typically use to predict an imminent eruption. 32 people died. 400,000 fled for the second time in 2 decades. The 2021 eruption was especially alarming for one specific reason. The precursory signals were almost non-existent. The volcano went from elevated background activity to active eruption faster than any monitoring model predicted. And now, in 2025, the background activity is elevated again. A long-period seismic event is not the same as a tectonic earthquake. A tectonic earthquake is rock fracturing under stress. Sharp, sudden, high-frequency signal. A long-period event is different. The signal is slower, smoother. It is caused by the movement of fluid, magma or volcanic gases, forcing its way through cracks in the rock beneath the volcano. It is the seismic equivalent of hearing something move inside a wall. You cannot see it, but you can hear it, and you know something is in there. When OVG scientists record a long-period event under Nyiragongo, they are not recording tectonic stress. They are recording magma in motion. This week's event is not isolated. The OVG has been logging an increasing frequency of these signals since mid-2024. Small at first, scattered. The kind of data point that on its own means very little, but they have not stayed scattered. They have clustered, deepened in some sequences, migrated upward in others, toward the surface, toward the lava lake, toward the base of the crater walls that fractured in 4 minutes in 1977. Here is the detail that no mainstream coverage is reporting correctly. Nyiragongo does not need a large earthquake swarm to erupt. It proved that in 2021, The absence of a dramatic precursory sequence is not evidence of safety. It is evidence of a volcano that does not give you much time. Now we have to talk about the lake, because Nyiragongo and Goma are only half the story. Directly below the city, the same city of 1 million people, sits Lake Kivu. Lake Kivu is one of the African Great Lakes. It is deep, cold, beautiful. Tourists photograph it. And inside it, dissolved under pressure at depth, sit approximately 300 cubic kilometers of carbon dioxide and 60 cubic kilometers of methane. Let those numbers sit. 300 cubic kilometers of CO2, trapped underwater, held down by the pressure of the water above it. There's a name for what happens when that gas releases suddenly. It is called a limnic eruption. There is no explosion, no lava, no ash. The lake simply exhales. A wave of invisible odorless CO2 rolls outward from the water across the land. It is heavier than air. It does not disperse. It flows into valleys, into streets, into buildings, into lungs. In 1986, Lake Nyos in Cameroon experienced a limnic eruption. Lake Nyos is a small crater lake. By volume, it is almost nothing compared to Lake Kivu. The CO2 released from Lake Nyos killed 1,700 people in a single night. Some died in their beds. Some died mid-sentence. Livestock died in their fields miles from the lake. The gas cloud reached villages 26 kilometers away. Lake Kivu holds approximately 1,000 times more dissolved gas than Lake Nyos did. There are 1 million people living on its shores. And here is what connects Lake Kivu directly to Nyiragongo. The lake sits on the East African Rift, so does the volcano. When Nyiragongo erupts, lava reaches Lake Kivu. Lava entering the lake heats the water. Heated water rises. Rising water carries dissolved gas toward the surface. A volcanic eruption into Lake Kivu does not just threaten Goma. It could trigger the largest limnic eruption in recorded human history. That is not a fringe scenario. That is what volcanologists who study this system describe in peer-reviewed literature as a credible compound hazard. And it has never made a headline outside academic journals. Here is what officials are not telling you. The monitoring of Nyiragongo is not proportional to the danger it represents. The OVG operates on a budget that would not fund a mid-sized university geology department in the West. Their seismic network around the volcano has significant gaps, areas where ground motion goes undetected because there are no instruments to detect it. The reason is not indifference. It is geography, politics, war. Since 2022, the M23 rebel movement has controlled significant territory in North Kivu province, the same province where Nyiragongo sits. In January 2025, M23 forces entered Goma itself. Think about what that means for volcano monitoring. The scientists responsible for watching the most dangerous urban volcano in Africa are working in a city that was entering active. Conflict at the same time, the seismic escalation beneath the volcano was accelerating. The two crises exist simultaneously. They are reported separately. They are the same crisis. When the road to your monitoring station is controlled by armed groups, when your power goes out during a critical observation window, when your international funding gets redirected to humanitarian response because 700,000 people have just been displaced by fighting, the volcano does not pause while you deal with everything else. It keeps moving. Move outward. And Nyiragongo does not sit in isolation. It sits at the most volcanically active point of the East African Rift system, the geological boundary where the African continent is slowly tearing itself apart. The rift runs for 6,000 kilometers, from the Afar Triangle in Ethiopia south, through Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, all the way to the Zambezi. Africa is splitting at approximately 7 millimeters per year. In geological terms, that is fast. The Virunga volcanic province, where Nyiragongo sits, is the western branch of that rift. It is one of the most active volcanic regions on a continent that the world rarely thinks of as volcanic at all. Nyiragongo's neighbor, Nyamuragira, is the most frequently erupting volcano in Africa. It erupted in 2021, in 2022, in 2023, in 2024, continuously, persistently, 25 kilometers from Nyiragongo's summit. These two volcanoes share a deep magmatic system. When Nyamuragira moves, it doesn't happen in isolation from Nyiragongo. The seismic escalation logged by OVG since 2024 is not originating from one isolated vent. It is coming from a system under pressure across a region where the ground itself is being pulled apart by forces that operate on timescales human civilization cannot fully comprehend. Move outward further. The African continent is not the only thing affected. A major Nyiragongo eruption, combined with a limnic event at Lake Kivu, would produce a humanitarian emergency that would dwarf the existing crisis in eastern DRC. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has modeled mass displacement scenarios for a Goma volcanic event. The displacement figures they use are not thousands. They are not hundreds of thousands. Their working scenarios involve millions of people moving across borders into Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, countries with their own fragile stability, within days of a major eruption. This is not a Congolese emergency. It is a regional destabilization event wearing a volcano's name. There are 3 ways to read the magma earthquake under Nyiragongo and the escalating signal since 2024. Nyiragongo is an open vent system. It has a persistent lava lake, one of only a handful on Earth. Long-period seismic events are a normal part of its behavior. Under this reading, the 2024 to 2025 escalation represents a period of heightened activity within the normal operating range of a restless volcano. The lava lake level fluctuates. The seismicity fluctuates with it. The current signals, while elevated, are not unprecedented. Its weakness. The 2021 eruption demonstrated that Nyiragongo's normal operating range can transition to eruptive activity faster than any model predicted. The baseline is not a safety margin. It is a starting position. Under this reading, fresh magma from depth has been entering the system since 2024. The long period events are not random. They trace a pathway from deep in the crust upward through the conduit system toward the lava lake. The lava lake, which partially drained in 2021, has been refilling. A refilling lava lake means rising magma pressure. Rising magma pressure means the conditions that produced 2021 are reassembling, not identical conditions. The system is not a machine running the same program, but analogous conditions. Conditions that, in 2021, ended with 32 people dead and 400,000 people displaced. Under this interpretation, the question is not whether there will be another eruption. It is whether there will be enough warning to move 1 million people before 60 miles per hour lava reaches the city. The honest answer is probably not enough warning. The 2021 event showed that. This is the interpretation that volcanologists discuss quietly in corridors after conferences. Under this reading, the magmatic recharge of Nyiragongo is occurring simultaneously with continued destabilization of the gas-rich hypolimnion, the deep layer of Lake Kivu. The lake's gas content has been increasing for years, fed by ongoing hydrothermal inputs from the rift beneath it. A significant eruption into the lake does not just produce a localized disaster. It produces a sequence. Eruption, lava into lake, heating of deep water, destabilization of dissolved gas, limnic event. In that sequence, the lava is not the most dangerous part. The CO2 is 300 cubic kilometers of it. 1 million people on the shores, no evacuation plan that has been tested at scale. This is the interpretation nobody wants to publish in a press release, because it does not have a clean solution, and problems without clean solutions do not make good public communication. They make for very good reasons to look somewhere else. Here's what the OVG knows. The system is not at rest. The long period events are real. The trend since 2024 is real. The risk is real. Here is what the OVG does not know. Whether this escalation leads somewhere or decays back into the noise, whether the magmatic recharge is filling a reservoir that will vent gradually through the lava lake, through Nyamuragira, or one that will find a new pathway to the surface, whether Lake Kivu's gas layer is close enough to destabilization that the next eruption into the lake triggers a cascade, or whether it has more capacity than the models currently suggest. These are not hypothetical unknowns. They are the documented knowledge gaps that appear in OVG field reports and in the published work of researchers at the Université de Liège, at the Royal Museum for Central Africa in Belgium, at the handful of institutions that have had the access and the funding to study the system properly. The gap between what we know and what we need to know is not small, and it is not closing quickly, because closing it requires field access to an active volcano in a conflict zone. Field access requires security. Security requires stability. Stability is not the word anyone is using to describe Eastern DRC right now. The volcano is not waiting for the security situation to improve. It does not have a political position. It does not recognize borders. It does not care that the road to the monitoring station is controlled by armed groups this week. It is simply doing what the magma earthquake confirmed it is doing. Moving. Let's go back to Goma, dawn over Lake Kivu. The water is flat, copper-colored in the early light. Fishing boats leave the shore. Markets open on the lakeside road. The city does what cities do. It moves, it breathes, it feeds itself. Above it, Nyiragongo's summit is usually shrouded in cloud. Most days you cannot see the crater from the street. You can smell the sulfur sometimes, that is all. 12 kilometers. That is the distance between the crater rim and the edge of the city. 12 kilometers of jungle, lava fields, and roads that may or may not be passable on any given day. In 2021, the lava covered that distance in under an hour. The OVG scientists who logged the magma earthquake this week did not issue a public alert. The signals do not yet warrant one, but they are watching the next data point, and the one after that, and the one after that, because that is what you do when you are one of the few people who understands what is building beneath the city you live in. You watch, you log, you hope the next signal is smaller than the last, and you keep a bag packed, not because you are panicking, because you are paying attention. Because in Goma, paying attention is the only evacuation plan that has ever actually worked. The lake is still this morning. The magma beneath it is not. The world is not watching. But the signals are running, and somewhere in a monitoring room with intermittent power, a seismogram is drawing a line that keeps asking the same question. How much longer?